Good morning. It is Monday, September 8th, 2025, and we're continuing with the thought of good versus no good. The emperor wears no clothes, and how we can boil everything down into good versus no good propositions. And here we are dealing with marriage, where marriage is being redefined by the state. And over the last 50 years, since I think the mid to early 70s, when Ronald Reagan signed the no-fault marriage divorce law in California, that was the beginning of no good. And nobody paid much attention to it until 50 years later. It took 50 years. It took a lot of head bumping. It took a lot of men losing a lot of money. And it made a lot of attorneys, it made the government, it enriched so many people that now we're just now starting to react in ways that will go around the trap that was set for the people that were innocent, that were naive, that were dumb, which is kind of a no good kind of situation. People that entered into most of these marriage agreements, half of the people that entered into those agreements, they entered in those agreements in good faith. They trusted that the other person involved understood the terms of the agreement, and those people were lied to. They were lied to. They were tricked, because anyone that is willing to go down to the divorce court and ask for divorce, there's only two considerations that go back to biblical times. And in biblical times, we understand that marriage was an institution that was created and ordained by God, created by the Creator for men to find women, to ensure paternity, to ensure that the man was going to be responsible for the woman and the children that come after. And there was really no limit to the number of marriages or wives that the man could have, because in the biblical framework of how life began from the very first man was that man was the worker. He was the one who was created first. He was the one that had the relationship with God to tend and keep the garden. And when woman came on the scene, the only thing she had to do was listen to the man and help him. That's it. Listen to the man. If he's telling awful stories or whatever, she's got to listen to this dude. And if he is telling awful stories, then maybe she can tell some better ones. But we already know in current culture, there's only a handful of women that are good storytellers. There are only a handful of women that are good wives. So we're living in a world where good is being kind of obscured by layers of conversation, layers of new words like alpha female. I think an alpha female is more of a woman that doesn't need to be out in front. She is better like that mob boss that nobody knows the name of the guy. Not like the movie The Godfather. Everybody knew who The Godfather was. But it would have been really wonderful to find out that, in the Italian mob world, it would have been funny to find out that, The Godfather might have been some Africa back in Nigeria who's running the show, pulling all the strings to all these Italians over in the United States. And, they're talking crap about niggas and wops and all this other kind of stuff. And then that would have been kind of like the greatest twist. It was almost like in that Marvel movie, Loki. We find out the guy who started it all, who began everything, was a brother. I thought that was a wonderful twist to the story. And that might be the funny thing about the United States, that here was, this organization called the United States, the Confederacy of the United States, was the brainchild of some black genius. And it's not far-fetched of a concept, in as much as that many of these concepts of law came from the Bible, one, and then they came from like the Middle East and African institutions that had existed thousands of years before the English was coming out of the caves and having a language that they can write down in written form. So that's going to be kind of like a topic for another day. But it's at a point where you got to be able to simplify things down. And I think The Emperor Wears No Clothes, that nursery rhyme or that parabolic story illustrates the problem with getting older. You know, with getting older, you become jaded and you become influenced by things that really twist your brain into not being able to clearly see good from no good. And this is what we're going to be talking about in terms of like marriage. So in marriage, the goodness of marriage is that it is a union of a man and a woman to where they become one individual. They become one flesh in a intimate sexual sense, and then they become unified in their desires for happiness and success. So their happiness is not unilateral. It's not a one-sided thing. Their happiness is going to be founded on what's best for the whole family. And most of the time, families are just the man and the woman. But eventually kids come into the situation, and it's at a point where the goodness of marriage is that you're no longer going to think about life in terms of what you want to do. You're going to think about, how is what I'm going to do going to impact the children? How is this going to impact my spouse? And either it's a good situation or a no good situation. And I would say that in our culture today, many women that get married start or continue to hang out with their unmarried girlfriends. And their unmarried girlfriends, believe it or not, may have an interest in blowing up your marriage, either to get you back into the fold of where you guys can start hanging out and going out clubbing and dating and stuff, or they might want to blow it up to get to your man. I mean, I've seen it happen in my own experience of marriage. So good versus no good, we're going to keep it simple. And I really hope some of you people can send me some stories where I can basically tell you and show you just how simple it is to determine what is good versus no good. Talk to you guys soon.